Austin Idol, the universal heartthrob, the man who had everything wrestling needed to make a superstar. The look, the talk, the confidence, and the heat. And yet, he never became the household name he should have been. At 76 years old, Austin Idol is still one of wrestling's biggest what-ifs. What if he had signed with Vince McMahon in the 80s? What if the plane crash never happened? What if he'd played the game instead of fighting it? It's one of wrestling's most interesting stories, because Idol didn't just fall short of fame. He walked away from it. Michael McCord was born in 1949 in Tampa, Florida, a real hotbed for wrestling back then. The guy didn't start as a superstar. He was a working man, doing construction, just trying to figure out life. But he wanted something bigger. He wanted to be a wrestler. So he talked his way into training with Mike Graham, son of promoter Eddie Graham, down in the old championship wrestling from Florida territory. That gym was brutal. They called it the Snake Pit, and it wasn't a nickname for show. Guys got twisted, stretched, and broken just to prove they belonged. Idol survived that. He earned his spot. By 1972, he was wrestling under his real name, Mike McCord. He even did a short run with Vince McMahon Sr.'s WWF. He had the size, the athletic build, and the toughness. But nobody really knew who he was yet. He was just another young wrestler trying to make a living on the road. Then came 1975, the year that changed everything. February 20th, 1975. That was the day everything changed for Michael McCord, the man the world would later know as Austin Idol. 4 men took off from Miami that night in a small Cessna 182 Skylane. Buddy Colt was the pilot. Gary Hart, the wrestling manager, was there too. Bobby Shane, one of the brightest young stars in the business, was sitting right behind them. And in that same plane was McCord, a young, hungry wrestler on his way to a show in Tampa. The weather was bad. A thick fog had rolled in over Tampa Bay. Colt tried to land the plane anyway, but he couldn't see the runway. The Cessna came in too low and hit the water hard. The crash was violent. The plane broke apart and sank almost immediately. Bobby Shane died on impact. Buddy Colt and Gary Hart were badly injured. McCord's body was wrecked. Both ankles were shattered. His ribs were broken. His feet were ripped open. He was bleeding and barely conscious. And then, in one of the most unbelievable moments in wrestling history, Gary Hart, hurt just as badly, pulled Colt and McCord out of the wreckage and swam them to shore through the cold, dark water. Hart was a hero that night. Without him, McCord wouldn't have survived. The crash put McCord out of wrestling for 2 years. Doctors told him his career was over. They said he would never walk right again. But he refused to believe it. He rebuilt himself, step by step. That recovery didn't just change his body, it changed his mind. It gave him something deeper than confidence. It gave him a story that nobody else had. When he finally came back, he wasn't Mike McCord anymore. He came back as Austin Idol, the universal heartthrob. He created that character from scratch. The tanned skin, the bleached blonde hair, the Vegas flash, the attitude. It wasn't just an image. It was a statement. It was a rebirth. The man who had almost died in Tampa Bay was back, and he was bigger, louder, and smarter than ever. He turned tragedy into mythology. The crash became the spark that forged Austin Idol. There's another twist connected to that crash. Before it happened, Bobby Shane had given Jerry Lawler his King of Wrestling crown and robe for a storyline. Shane died in the crash, and Lawler never returned the crown. That is how Jerry Lawler became the King. So in a strange way, that tragedy also gave birth to one of wrestling's most iconic characters. When Idol hit the Memphis territory, he took over. His feud with Jerry Lawler became the centerpiece of the Continental Wrestling Association. The 2 men drew massive crowds. They fought in every kind of match you can think of. Steel cages, hair versus hair, no disqualification. Every time, fans filled the Mid-South Coliseum to see it. The most famous was the hair versus hair steel cage match on April 27, 1987. The place was sold out. Fans were on fire. Idol worked the crowd like a master. When it ended, Lawler's head was shaved. The people were in shock, and Idol had done what he always did best. He made everyone talk about him. During that era, he held just about every major title in Memphis: the AWA Southern Heavyweight Championship 3 times, the CWA International Heavyweight Championship 4 times, the CWA World Heavyweight Championship once. He even won tag gold with Dutch Mantel. And he didn't stop there. In Georgia Championship Wrestling, Idol showed he could be the top guy anywhere. He held both the Georgia heavyweight and television titles. He challenged Harley Race for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. He even toured with All Japan Pro Wrestling and won the PWF Tag Team Championship with Stan Hansen. He had everything it took to be a global star: charisma, presence, skill, and influence. Even Hulk Hogan admitted later that Idol inspired him. Hogan's famous move, cupping his hand to his ear to listen to the crowd, came straight from Austin Idol. Hogan himself said he stole it. Think about that. The biggest name in wrestling history borrowed one of the most famous gestures in wrestling from Austin Idol. That tells you how ahead of his time Idol was. So if he had all that, why wasn't he as famous as Hogan, Flair, or Savage? That is where the story turns. In 1981, Idol joined Jim Crockett Promotions, the powerhouse of the NWA. He was pushed as a major heel, working with Ricky Steamboat and Wahoo McDaniel. He was set to feud with Ric Flair. The stage was finally there for him to go national. Then came another setback. Idol got into a car accident and missed a scheduled TV taping in Raleigh. He called Ole Anderson, who was booking the territory, to explain. Ole told him if he didn't show up, there would be problems. Idol stayed home to heal. Anderson saw that as defiance. When Idol recovered, he didn't go back. He walked away. That one decision changed everything. His spot was given to Roddy Piper. Piper ran with it and became a legend. Idol became a cautionary tale. From that moment on, promoters started calling him difficult. They said he was unreliable, hard to manage. But people who knew him said it was the opposite. Idol just refused to be controlled. He wanted fair pay. He wanted respect. He wanted to protect his body and his brand. In the wrestling world of the 1980s, that kind of independence was seen as rebellion. Promoters liked wrestlers who followed orders. Idol didn't. There are stories that back it up. Once, he demanded that a promoter actually post the prize money for a $10,000 battle royal. The promoter did it. Idol won the match, took the real check, and left the arena with it in his pocket. That wasn't being a jerk. That was holding people accountable. And because of that, promoters never forgot. But here's the thing. The label, difficult, often gets used on people who are just too smart to be pushed around. Idol didn't drink. He didn't do drugs. He wasn't one of the boys who went out and partied all night. He stayed clean, trained hard, and focused on business. That made him different in a world where excess was normal. It also made him a threat to people who relied on manipulation and loyalty to stay in power. So, instead of being rewarded, Idol got frozen out. The national companies passed him over. He could have been a top heel on TBS or a WrestleMania headliner, but he chose integrity over fame. After he retired from full-time wrestling in 1994, Idol reinvented himself again. He used his mind instead of his muscles. He opened Austin Idol's Universal Wrestling College in Greenville, South Carolina. It's not a gimmick school. It's serious training, small classes, direct instruction, real teaching on how to talk, how to sell, how to think like a wrestler. Idol trains wrestlers, referees, announcers, and writers. He's passing on what he learned the hard way. He also returned to television through the revived NWA under Billy Corgan. He's managed talent, done commentary, and reminded fans what real wrestling charisma looks like. When he talks, people still listen. The energy is still there. And now, he's taking that presence into a new venture. His latest project is a reality show called Tales from Idolville. It follows Idol and his students at his wrestling school. The show mixes the intensity of training with the real emotional stories of the people trying to make it. The first episode focuses on the plane crash that nearly ended his life. That's not coincidence. It's strategy. Idol knows that story is the key to everything. It's the reason his name still matters. It's the moment that defines who he is. By leading with that story, he connects old fans who remember 1975, with new viewers who are just discovering him. Tales from Idolville isn't just nostalgia. It's Idol taking control of his story again. He's turning his life into content, his legacy into a brand. And just like always, he's doing it without anyone telling him how. So where is Austin Idol now? He's still in the game, still teaching, still talking, still living by his own rules. He never played by the system, and he's not starting now. In an industry built on control and compliance, Idol chose freedom. He gave up superstardom for self-respect. He turned pain into power. He built a legend out of survival. And 50 years after that plane went down, Austin Idol is still proving that charisma doesn't fade. It just finds new ways to shine. Maybe he never needed the big stage after all. Maybe he was always the star of his own show. And maybe that's what makes him the most real heartthrob wrestling ever had. Austin Idol's story isn't a simple wrestling biography. It's a survival story, a rebellion story, and a masterclass in self-reinvention. In 1975, a plane crash should have ended his life. It didn't. Instead, it destroyed Mike McCord and gave birth to Austin Idol. That crash wasn't just a tragedy, it was an evolution. When Idol came back, he didn't just return to the ring. He came back as a character who embodied everything he had lived through: danger, glamour, defiance, and the refusal to quit. He turned real pain into performance. Every strut, every smirk, every promo carried the energy of a man who had literally crawled out of the wreckage. And that's what made him special. He wasn't pretending to be larger than life. He was larger than life. In the Memphis territory, he became the perfect rival for Jerry Lawler. Their feud wasn't just a storyline. It was theater that blurred the line between reality and showmanship. Idol was magnetic. He knew how to make a crowd hate him, love him, or both in the same breath. When he stepped through the curtain, people believed in him because everything about him came from truth. And it's wild to think about the domino effect of that one crash. Bobby Shane's death led to Jerry Lawler becoming the king. Idol's rebirth gave Memphis its flashiest superstar. One night of disaster created two of wrestling's most enduring legends. But Idol's career also showed how ruthless the wrestling business could be. When he refused to bow to promoters, he paid for it. Walking away from Jim Crockett Promotions in 1981 wasn't just a career move. It was a declaration of independence. He was supposed to feud with Ric Flair and become a national television villain. Instead, Roddy Piper took that spot and ran with it. And here's the controversial part. If Idol had played the game, he might have become a household name. But he didn't want to be owned. He wasn't the kind of guy who smiled for the boss and did what he was told. He wanted to be treated fairly, paid honestly, and respected for his talent. In an industry built on manipulation, that kind of honesty made him a problem, so he became difficult. That's the word promoters used for anyone they couldn't control. But what they called difficult, he called self-respect. Austin Idol didn't fit the mold because he was never made to. He was clean, disciplined, and business-minded in a locker room full of chaos. While others destroyed themselves chasing fame, he quietly built a life, a brand, and a reputation that lasted. And even when the national spotlight faded, Idol kept finding new ways to reinvent himself. He became a teacher, a manager, a mentor. He turned his Universal Wrestling College into a place where people learned more than just moves. He was teaching how to command attention, how to own your voice, how to believe your own character. Even now, decades later, he's still doing it. His reality show, Tales from Idolville, isn't just nostalgia. It's strategy. It's Austin Idol taking control of his own story in the streaming era, mixing legacy with modern media. He's showing the next generation how to turn their lives into stories worth watching. That first episode about the plane crash isn't a coincidence. It's the foundation. Idol knows that the power of his story comes from what he survived. Every success, every reinvention, every comeback leads back to that cold February night in Tampa Bay. And here's the real takeaway. Austin Idol never needed to be the biggest star in the world. He just needed to be the most real. He didn't chase fame. He built a life around authenticity. He didn't bow to power. He walked away from it. And that's why, half a century later, people are still talking about him. In the end, Austin Idol represents something rare in professional wrestling. A man who refused to let the business break him. He played the game, but only on his own terms. He didn't just survive the system, he outsmarted it. He might not have had the billion-dollar career, but he had something far more valuable: control. The Universal Heartthrob is still alive, still talking, still teaching, and still proving that charisma doesn't fade, it just evolves. So when you think about wrestling legends, remember this: not every icon comes from the biggest stage. Some build their legacy in fire, in pain, in survival. Austin Idol did all three. And maybe that's why his story still hits harder than most. If you've made it this far, here's what I want to know. Do you think Idol's independence cost him greatness, or did it define it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you want more stories like this, deep dives into wrestling's untold legacies, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode. Because this is where we keep the legends alive.